to make you horny for the next one. You know what I mean?
Welcome to the Service to Syndication podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlow. I am a U.S. Navy vet. Here on the Service to Syndication Real Estate podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world, where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindset, skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me today Mr. Edgar Gonzalez. He is a top-notch real estate investor and realtor. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I just want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some value out of today's interview, if you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some action to make some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who share this episode, I want to say thank you. And again, everyone, we have Mr. Edgar Gonzalez. Edgar is a serial entrepreneur who has successfully started and led multiple companies over the past decade. His business ventures have ranged from hoverboards and vodka to real estate. Currently, he is co-founder and COO of EarTuff, a company specializing in custom hearing protection for manufacturers. As a subject matter expert in real estate investing, consulting, Edgar put his money where his mouth is by equipping investors with tools they need to build their own real estate portfolios, drawing from his own successful experience. Edgar served 15 years in the Army and currently holds the rank of Sergeant First Class in the Georgia Army National Guard. As an operations NCO in the Security Force Assistance Brigade, there he advises partner nations on synchronizing military combat operations at the battalion and brigade levels. His military career includes roles as an infantry leader and multiple deployments overseas, including to Afghanistan. With a diverse background in combat operations, ranger training, and business expertise, Edgar has been dedicated to giving back to the veteran community. He serves as a board member at ATL Vets, that is Advance the Line for Veterans, where he advocates for and mentor veterans transitioning from military to civilian life. Edgar's leadership in business, real estate, and military service makes him a valuable source for veterans looking to build businesses and invest in real estate through ATL Vets. All right, Edgar. So the first thing that I normally do is ask my guests to walk us through their real estate journey in 75 seconds or less. But with you being a serial entrepreneur, just kind of walk us through your journey in 75 seconds or less, and then we'll start to unpack some of that.
All right, cool. So, number one, Cedric, I appreciate you having me on here, and advocating for veterans and especially in the real estate space. So it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to talk about, real estate and, veterans and how we can help push the envelope forward to help with the transition. I've been in real estate, like I mentioned before, all my life. So my dad was a general contractor. My mom was a realtor. So they did flips and they did buy and hold single family. So I was always their little worker, doing the tiles, doing the drywall, doing the painting, you know what I mean? The whole nine. So I've been involved in real estate since I was like 9, 10 years old, just rolling up my sleeves and, getting dirty with it. And so I learned a lot through kind of like my mom in regards to how she negotiated with people, how she talked, how she showed houses, things like that. But then my dad's side was really understanding like I guess now looking back is like the flip side, right? Understanding renovations, how much things would cost, doing things a certain way, right? So you're not gonna, do the floors and then, paint the walls or paint the ceiling, right? There's a certain way that you have to, go about it, right? So I've been learning a lot of that at an early age. And so when I actually got into real estate, actually doing it was around 2018. No, so 2019. So it was right after my last deployment. And that's when I actually start doing it professionally. I say professionally because that's when I had to get licensed. I worked at a real estate investment firm out of Atlanta. It's called New Western Acquisitions. You probably have heard of it. Especially on the single family side. So I was an agent through there. And I was there for about a year until I started realizing that I can make my own money, bigger money on the outside of New Western. Because, dude, New Western was great culture, great guys. Dude, that's actually the most competent agents I've ever dealt with. 1000%. I have nothing but great things to say about New Western, right? Especially, how they conduct themselves, the hustle mentality, just really truly investor agents that like actually break down the numbers for it to make sense to be an actual consultant to clients. You know what I mean? So I would say I learned a lot of my expertise through New Western. New Western was like almost like a university for me, going through there for my first year. And then so when I left New Western, I started doing wholesaling on my own. And I remember doing my first wholesale deal for 10K in 1 week. So the guy, I showed him the house on Saturday. He agreed. We shook hands right there on the driveway, signed contract right there on the tailgate of my truck. And then we closed the following Friday. So it was like the fastest 10 grand I've ever made in my life. So after that, I was just kind of hooked, So I've been, running and gunning per se, in the wholesale side to the point where I was able to start buying my own houses, my own properties, building my own portfolio, and to now, kind of teaching people, they can do the same.
So, Edgar, you're an entrepreneur, real estate investor, realtor, educator, and let's not forget the most important job, being a husband and father. Where do you find the time?
My wife asked me the same thing, It's interesting, man. I dedicate certain times of the month, right? So with ATL vets, I'm like, hey, you got me 2 days out of the month. That's what you got. So the board meetings, obviously that's a monthly thing. And then the other one is actually teaching real estate, which is you got to talk about like a few hours. Paying it forward that way, 2 days out of the month, that's reasonable, right? And actually teaching veterans. I mean, that's what is that, 3 hours of my time. So I'll do that any day, I stay at home. So I work here in my office. So my daughter doesn't go to daycare. She sits with me, you know what I mean? And so I make it a point to go, play with her and everything in between calls. Or she goes on her iPad or something, and she rides with me to business meetings. She rides with me to go see houses. I mean, she's my ride or die. Same thing with my son. So my son was like that when since he was 4, actually going through the hood, you know what I mean, in Atlanta, and the dudes wouldn't really fuck with me because they're like, oh, he's got a kid, he's not a cop or nothing like that. So it was kind kind of a funny thing. Some people will be like, oh, why would you do that? But I don't know. It's just never a big thing. But my kids, they ride with me. They want, and then the whole purpose of it is like, hey, if they see their dad grinding, they're like, it's one of those subconscious things that they'll develop over time, that they will get when they get older. So, and then me and my wife, we do this cool thing. So it's like, I do a date night every other month, and I do a family day every other month. It's non-negotiable, right? So that's how I fit it in. So that way it's like, hey, that family day is like, oh, we're gonna go to Six Flags, we'll go to, Helen, we'll go do, it's like, it's a full-blown full day, or a full-blown date day with the wife. So that's how we do it. That's how I schedule it, and that's how we make it happen and keep the spark alive. And then every day is just business or real estate, whichever is working. So that's my day-to-day operations right there, man.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. That's one thing that us as entrepreneurs, we have to compartmentalize, from time to time. And we have to make sure that we make time for those that are most important to us. And I see that you have that. And I like the way that you have it spaced out, and there's the family time, and then there's that time with you and your wife. And then all the other time, it's the ATL beds, it's the real estate, it's the EarTuff, it's all of these things. So no, that's really commendable of you for doing something like that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So now, with your parents being a realtor and, contractor and things like that, you didn't have to like go in the military, but what prompted you to go into the military?
I was a bad kid. Nah, I had just I was around the wrong crowd. I was doing, the wrong thing, you know what I mean? So I needed some discipline in my life. And then of course, I graduated in 2010 out of high school. So I was that was kind of like the peak of the war. So it was, hey man, like I went to high school to play baseball. That didn't work out for a lot of different reasons, not that I took ownership of. And so I was like, well, the next best thing, I'm just going to go in the military and shoot some bad guys in the face. That was I was like, that sounds cool. Let's do it. So I mean, that's really what it was, man. Is that I just needed to get some discipline in my life for sure.
Okay. All right, nice. And I know, you've done you did about 8 years active, and now you're in the National Guard. So was there a reason behind leaving active duty at that time?
Yeah, so I've always done little businesses on the side. I think you mentioned it with the hoverboards and the Gold Star vodka and stuff like that. And so when I started doing the hoverboards, that was actually the first time that wanted me to become an entrepreneur, actually. So kind of a short story on that is I didn't want nothing to do with it. I was and I was like, look, I'm going to do some deployments. I'm going to get some combat experience under my belt. I'm going to go to school and, get my degree, criminal justice degree. And I'm going to try to get as many military schools under my belt. So that way, when I put together a packet, I'm going to go to the DEA and hunt down cartel. That was my plan. That was my plan from start to finish. Like nobody was going to tell me no different. That's what I was doing. That's what I was focused on. And my roommate at the time, we were best friends. And his brother was from Dubai. Not from Dubai, but his brother was living in Dubai. And his brother was a big entrepreneur, business guy. And he hit us up one day and he was like, hey, man, have you ever seen these boards? They're going crazy here in Dubai. Have they made it into the States? And he shot us a couple of videos. We're like, nah, man, like we never have. He said, well, look, I want to send you guys a few boards, try them out, test them out, see if you can get some buzz out of them. And if you do, let's do a business. We're like, all right, whatever. And again, I really just pushed it off, man. I was not interested. The board showed up at the house. My roommate's like, dude, these are super cool. Let's do this. I'm like, no, whatever, bro. I'm like, and then, so he's very kind of introvert person. And so he was like, hey man, come to the flea market with me, the freaking flea market. He was like, man, come try to sell these boards. I'm like, dude, I don't want to go. He said, and he was just begging me, man. He was like, dude, I don't want to go, bro. Just fucking go with me, man. You know what I mean? And I was like, all right, I'll go. And when we went, and we rented out a little 10 by 10 little spot, at the flea market. It looked like when we started riding our hoverboards and stuff around, people thought we invented fire there. And we had a crowd there, and people were trying to buy our boards for like 800, 900, 1,000, like each. And I think it was like that first sale. I tell people all this all the time. It takes that one sale, to make you horny for the next one. You know what I mean? And like that, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here, but
let's rock. Keep it going.
Yeah, but that's what did it for me, that first sale. And then I was like, all right, cool. And then that first sale turned into a deal, or me flying out to LA to speak with Safari, Nicki Minaj's ex-boyfriend. So we ended up doing a partnership with Safari. He blasted our stuff on social media. And then after that, all the rappers hitting me up, all the celebrities hitting me up. Sat down with T.I. here in Atlanta to do a equity deal on our company. I mean, dude, it blew up crazy. And that was the first time where there was a $1.3 million deal on the table with Metro PCS. They wanted to do a kind of a collaboration marketing deal with us, with boards and stuff like that. And so I think that was the first time where I was like, all right, like, the Army is not where it's at. You know what I mean? I was like, that was where it was like, that was the fast life, the fast money, what everybody talk about. For it to all be ended, that Mark Cuban bought the patent to those boards and put all of us out of business. That's what happened. Yeah, he bought the patent, and he sent out a bunch of cease and desist letters to all the small companies around the country. And then there was a huge legal battle because Segway got involved, saying that they, got the copyright. So it was a huge shit show. So we just kind of got out of it because we were just kind of like the little guys making a buck here or two. And so that's how it started. But dude, I tell you what, that's what got me like, all right, and then that business opened the door to the vodka business. And so I was like, look, if I can't put all my time and effort and expertise in the military, let me just do it part-time. And that's kind of why I ended up doing that.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Mark Cuban, if you ever hear this, bro, you had enough money. You're a billionaire.
Hey. Yeah, man. Let me alone. Let me alone.
Yeah.
Man.
Let some people eat. Okay. Let some people eat. You didn't have to buy the whole patent and just put everybody out of business.
Yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, that hoverboard, that was a big thing when it came out. I was like, whoa.
Dude, I was the first one in Georgia to sell that thing. Wow. Like, I mean, it was insane. So we bought it right at like the beginning, when everybody thought that was the most futuristic stuff, man. Yeah, man. I'm gonna shoot you some commercial videos that we put together with Safari. Yeah. Super cool, man.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, do that. So let's turn to real estate. So while you were pursuing your real estate license, did you have another job, or was this around the hoverboard time?
No. So actually, let me go back. So I actually didn't get out. So until real estate was really truly the one where I was actually making the decision to jump ship, to go reserve. And it was pretty funny because when I came back from the deployment, that was when I was like, look, I'm not trying to do this full time, especially after like that deployment. We lost a bunch of dudes, and so that's when I was like, I got to make the decision of whether, do more deployments like this or go into real estate full time. And I remember putting in an application to New Western, real estate investment firm. And because real estate investment firm. And they were like, yeah, come on in. And I did the interview. And they were talking about how you can make $100,000 a year. Back then on active duty salary, that's crazy, right? Compared to E5 pay and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'm all in. And all you gotta do is hustle. I'm like, dude, I've been hustling for years, dude. That's not a fucking problem, And so anyways, I had to jump ship from active duty where, you're getting paid on the 1st and the 15th every single month, to 100% commission. It was insane. And I remember talking to my parents about it. They're like, that's retarded. You don't need to do that. But, they supported me with the hoverboard and the vodka business for so long that they were like, they kind of knew I was going to do it anyway, no matter what they said. They were just there for support, moral support. So when I jumped ship, I think that was kind of the craziest because they're like, hey, you need to get your license in 30 days. And I was like, and you talk to anybody, like you don't get a license in 30 days, man. Like it takes like 3 months, you know? And
Mhm.
so 30 days, I was just hitting the books hardcore. It's kind of funny. I failed the first time I went to the real estate exam.
Yeah.
I fucking failed, you know? And so I was like, damn, but they still hired me. I still went through their training, but they're like, you can't sell any houses until you can't sell any houses until like you get your real estate exam, man, you know? And I was like, all right, cool. And I was building buyers list, and then I think a month goes by, and then I failed the test again by like three, and I failed it by like 3 points, man. Then somehow, some way, I was looking up. I was like, man, this got to be something. So it turns out in Georgia, you get 5 point veteran points
Ah,
on the real estate exam, man. You get 5 points, man. And I sent it like directly from the book to my broker. I'm like, hey man, like I can get 5 points. They're like, well, why are you telling me this? I'm like, did you pass the second time or did you fail? Did you fucking fail? And I'm like, yeah, I failed, but I passed. And he was like, dude, no, there's one or the other, you know. And I just kind of told him the whole spiel. He's like, dude, you're the first guy, because I think I was the first military guy they've ever hired there. And so they're like, what kind of bullshit little thing did you just come up with? I'm like, dude, it's right here in the Georgia Real Estate Handbook, like section D, paragraph 4, line 2.
that no one knows about. It's been in the book, but no one knows about it.
But I found it. You know what I mean? I was like, dummies like me, infantry guys like me, we had to figure out something to, get push that envelope forward, So they laughed about it, and I submitted all my paperwork to the real estate commission. Man, I had my DD 214, man. I had my uniform on, deployment orders, Afghanistan. I give them everything. Dog tags, boom. I made sure. I made sure because dude, at that point, well, I already resigned. From active duty. So all this was already like, oh, you failed the first one, you failed the second time, you still not making any. 2 months already went by, and you're not even making money. You haven't even started. So time was clicking big time, man. And then I just found out my wife was pregnant. And then it was like, damn, And so, yeah, it was a wild ride, man. Wild ride. Yeah, it was a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you finally got licensed and everything, if you can just kind of walk us through that first deal where you were able to find the buyer, had the seller, find the buyer, and was able to close that transaction. And what did that feel like?
Yeah, so I knew Western, when you're like a newer agent there, your whole sole purpose in life is to build your buyers list. That was it. So you went to a bunch of networking events, you went to a bunch of anywhere investors were, like you were cold calling. I mean, you're doing all kinds of stuff to build your buyers list full of things. So when I wasn't studying for the exam, I was building my buyers list, right? So then now I had buyers literally everywhere. I mean, I was grinding, man. Like I was like chasing, I was like a dog chasing the end of the meatball truck. You know what I mean? And so when I finally got my license and I was finally able to like send out deals, I sold a deal in a week. Yeah, I sold a deal in a week, man. Like that. And at New Western at the time, I don't know if they still do this, but at the time, when you sell your first deal at New Western at 8 o'clock in the morning, they do like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday meetings. They bring a 40. Your mentor brings a 40, like a beer, and you have to chug it in front of everybody and stand on top of the table and do it. Zoom calls with the different, locations and everything. And I just remember standing on top of the table at 8:30 in the morning, chugging a beer, and then like, dude, it's been so long since I took the beer, and it was so cold early in the morning, man. I spit everything out, and they're like, oh, I mean, it was insane. It was a party house for sure. But it was, like I said, great times, great people. And that's essentially how I sold my first deal. The problem was 2 weeks later when I got the actual money, it was like $800. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? What is this? It's like, man, I was like, this is for the birds. So I started realizing like New Western was cool Culture was cool. Everything was there. I would have been a lifer probably at New Western if I would have got paid the way I would have got paid. But man, you didn't get paid shit there, dude, for the amount of work. And so that's after that check, after that house, and I realized how small of a cut that you're getting, I was like, now I'm working on my exfil,
There we go.
exfil now, I was like, I can't be doing this. I was like, I worked way too hard for me to come over here and, like to be getting these little ass checks, man.
Yeah, 100%. I get it. Yeah. So now how did you, and then we can move on past this, but how did you find New Western, or did New Western find you? How did that come about?
So when I started talking to my mom about real estate, when I started diving into it, because it was like on the ride back from my last deployment, I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Obviously, that's kind of like the book that, it's like the Bible, right? So when I started asking my mom about, hey, what's a good deal look like? What does this look like? Things like that. She wasn't able to tell me. And I was like, Mom, how do you not do this? You guys flipped houses, like how you whatever. And it really what it turned out was, they just found they crunched numbers, right? But it's she wasn't able to either explain it to me good enough, or it just wasn't the answers I was looking for, right? And so it's one of the two. And I was like, you know what? Like if I'm gonna go real estate, I really want to go on the investment. I don't want to be a realtor. That's the last thing I want. I was like, realtors, I was like, it's just, I don't like that. Oh, look at me. I'm in this nice suit and I'm going to go show these beautiful houses. Like, look, no, dude, I want to learn investment real estate. So the only way I can do that is by being around people that do investment real estate. And I was like, so I just started Googling, different brokerages that do investment real estate. New Western just continued to pop up as like kind of the main one. And as I was looking into it and everything like that, I was like, all right, let me check these guys out. And so essentially I found them in that regards, because that's what they specialize, was single family investment real estate. So and they wholesale. That's what they do too. So I don't know if many people know that, but New Western's a wholesale brokerage.
Oh yeah, 100%. I know them quite well, here in Philadelphia. That just came from me being in the single family space prior to me crossing over to the syndication. You're at the RIA group, at your local RIA group meeting, and here come the NW representative, and they want your card, of course, and so that they can put you on their list. Yeah, like every week you're getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 emails of things that they have locked down that they're trying to wholesale out. And I mean, like, they have great deals. I'll definitely say that. That's one thing about them. So, and I know that a lot of people they hire, it has that hustler mentality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And professionalism too. I think it's like it's the both. That's what I like about it. Because I mean, man, how many wholesalers have you with that you're like, dude, you are retarded. You know what I mean? Or like, you're like, dude, you're just like, I don't even know if I want to do business with you because I don't even know if you locked up the deal correctly or if you're going to come through. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I liked about New Western. It was very professional, but very hustler like mentality too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As you were explaining the whole beer chugging thing, Wall Street popped in my head.
Oh yeah, very Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. No, it was good times, man. I mean, actually, after I sold that first deal too, my mentor was like, "Hey, now let's go to Twin Peaks." And I was like, I didn't even know where Twin Peaks was. I didn't know what Twin Peaks was at the time. And they're like, "Yeah, man, we're going there at 11 o'clock. Like, just come." And I remember we go in there, and the girls were like, half, how Twin Peaks are, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And they knew the bartenders there, man, and all the New Western guys, they popped up their laptops at the bar. And I remember me sitting there just having like a beer. And I remember they were selling houses at the bar while we were drinking.
Wow.
And when somebody sold a house at the bar, it was like another round. So I remember it was like, we got there at 11 and it was like 5, 6 p.m. And I remember talking to investors like drunk, I was like, I don't even know what I'm talking about, them hanging up on me. And my wife calling me like, dude, where are you? So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It really was good times. But that was the craziest thing, man. I've never seen people sell houses at a bar like that, man. Like, and then I'm talking about like real selling, like because you know how a New Western is, man. It's like you sign a contract, 0 days due diligence, okay, earnest money, and that's non-refundable. So it's like once you get a signed contract and they wire that, like that's it. That's on the contract. That shit's sold.
Yeah.
That
Hell
shit.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, their tactics are interesting. I'll say that in terms of, their contracts and everything like that. But the one good thing, they definitely do come with a full package
Yeah.
when, they put something in front of you, so you have literally everything there. But yeah, so now at which point did you start to make that transition from basically broker slash wholesaler to investor?
After I left New Western, so kind of a funny thing is I got activated in 2020 was the pandemic, right? And so I got activated for the pandemic. And so I had left New Western. I'm like, hey, I got called up. They're never used to that. So like, what do you mean you got called up, man? Like I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, I got called up. So we got called up and we were on orders for like 3 months, man. Dealing with the pandemic and providing resources and stuff like that all throughout Georgia, and then the riots happened in June. So in Atlanta, I remember all the riots were happening all across the country. They had a big, huge riot that we were responded to in downtown Atlanta. Insane. And then I would say so I was pretty occupied after I left, and then so you're talking about 4 months. Then I was like, okay, now I got back. I was like, now is grind time for me to go ahead and start doing things on my own, wholesaling. And then of course that deal where I made 10K, that was like the first time where I actually was like, wow, like there's money to be made here and it's real. I don't have to give any portion of this to anybody. And then 6 months later, I was activated again at Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of Joe Biden. I was down there dealing with that. So I've been constantly kind of like pushed in and out. But then that 2021 year was when I was like a full blown kind of real estate agent, investor agent type of person. And then um because of my background and a lot of people, a lot of my friends and Facebook friends and colleagues, they're all like veterans. Everybody was hitting me up about the VA loan and whatever. So it turned out when I was an agent on the agent side of things was 95% of my buyers were veterans, 1000%. And it's pretty cool is because during that time, you remember 2020, 2021, that was when everybody was overpaying for properties because like the interest rate was so down, right? But if you're a veteran buyer, dude, you were on the bottom of that stack. I mean, big time. I don't know if you remember, but dude, because you gotta remember like those sellers, they were only accepting offers that were cash or conventional. And they were only, accepting offers that were like 30, 40K over list price,
Yep.
With appraisal gaps. I mean, dude, those days were crazy, man. Insane, right? So veterans were at the bottom of the stack. And then that was when I linked up with Ribbon Home. And I was actually one of the first agents apparently to test out Ribbon Home. So Ribbon Home, what they did is they allowed me as the agent to submit an all cash offer to the seller, right? And so what happens is, are you familiar with Ribbon Home or no?
Not at all.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'm able to submit an all cash offer to the seller that is backing my buyer's loan with cash. It's kind of hard to explain. So
Okay. No, I get it.
yeah. So it's an all cash offer. So purchase and sales, it's the same. Everything's the same. But instead of having like the VA loan exhibit that gets attached to the contract, you have the Ribbon Home addendum. And so you still do like a three-week close, and there's like a kind of an option, right? So either you pay 1%, the veteran buyer pays 1% to have the Ribbon Home to back your offer, but you're still closing with your VA loan. You're still closing with your VA loan, so 0% down the whole nine is back. So if anything ever happens, Ribbon Home will still buy the house. That's what so but the sellers didn't really know that you're still closing with the VA loan, right? Or you pay 1.5 or 2.5% that Ribbon Home would actually just buy the property straight up in like 7 days, the whole nine, and then the veteran will buy it back from Ribbon Home at like
Once
the
the
same
loan.
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like a double closing kind of, but so yeah, man. So like that right there was like the biggest thing. I would say that was a pretty big thing that put me on the map for sure. Because Ribbon Home was raving about it. I was in a lot of articles. I think if you go on the Ribbon Home website, I'm actually one of like the main agents up there. So Wall Street Journal, I mean, a bunch of people. That's actually how I got into ADPI. They read my article, and that's how I got involved with them for a little bit. So yeah,
Wow.
super interesting, man. Yeah, so yeah, I would say that's essentially my transition outside of New Western.
Okay. Okay. So now your first investment property that you got underneath your belt, how did you get that? How did that come about?
Man, that's actually a really funny story. That neighborhood, it's in like Riverdale, South Side Atlanta, and I actually sold already a few duplexes in that neighborhood, so I knew the market. I mean, I knew the market, man, and I sold two duplexes there already. And so when I saw this one come up, and I had the cash already built up from all the deals that I was making, I was like, oh, this is the one. I was like, I know the market rent. I know the appreciation, year over year, what that looks like. I already know all the comps. I already know, like, just by looking at it, face value, I was like, it's a deal. I need to move on it right now. And the guy, and if something happened where I wasn't able to make it out there. I wasn't able to make it out there. Like, hey man, like you got to buy it now. And it was actually New Western's competitor that sold me the deal. They're what are they called? Stone or something. Stone is their competitor. And it's kind of a funny, man, like Atlanta, like New Western, Skystone dudes, like when they see each other, it's like Bloods and Crips. So it's like, nah, fuck those dudes. Dude, it's funny. Dude, it's a funny thing. But yeah, Skystone sold me my first deal. And I remember I didn't follow any of the things that I advise people, man. I didn't even do an inspection. The only inspection I did was I sent my contractor out there just to give me kind of like whatever. And he told me, yeah, man, it's good to go. So I took that like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's good to go. And it's going to be this much per unit and stuff like that. And so I actually bought the property sight unseen, essentially, Yeah, stupid, man, stupid. And then based off pictures, I mean the whole nine, and they were like, "Hey, you either got to do it now or whatever." And submitted. Skystone did like $7,000 non-refundable, so I committed hard, and everything, and I used hard money, so I was doing the full Burr method, and yeah, man, for the first deal, I was all in on that bad boy, and I did renovations on top of the tenants. I wouldn't advise either. So a lot of learning points on that one. But I would say like I still have that deal today and it's got over 200K in equity. It's cash flowing tremendously. That property is probably still to this day like the best property I've bought. And even though I did everything that wrong you're not supposed to do, it worked out for me best.
We know you're going to like this episode, so please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so you can be notified when the next episode drops.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for those that are listening to this, I'll just say, buying things sight unseen, I definitely don't advise it. However, the one thing that Edgar had going for him for this purpose was the fact that he knew that area. So he knew the true value of the property, regardless of what he was paying for it. So therein lies because he knew what these homes in that area would be worth. So that's probably the only time that you might be advised to buy something sight unseen. Plus, he did have his contractor to go out there and at least say it's good, So that's the funny part. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because I'm gonna tell you, I've had a couple of opportunities, and with me being in the syndication space, I do have a partner in my market that I like to buy in, but it's nothing like me actually seeing the property itself.
Yeah.
Because with me seeing the property, then I know, okay, thumbs up, it's good to go. I like it. Where, my partner, he kind of knows my, what I like, but at the same time, it's nothing like me seeing it because I've seen
Yeah.
some stuff and
1,000.
I'm like, no, hard pass, not gonna do it,
Yeah, because you might see something that your partner didn't see.
a
You know
hundred
what I
percent.
mean? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, yeah, it was stupid, for sure. Yeah, it was stupid. I definitely had the FOMO and everything going on, and I haven't done it like that ever since, actually. Never done it after that because I understand how rare of a situation for me not to get screwed over the way I did. I think a lot of people don't realize is that real estate can fuck you big time, man, especially if you don't buy it right, so it's I think they just hear a bunch of things on social media or YouTube, Reels, TikTok, oh, you make 10K a month by doing Airbnb strategy that nobody else knows. You know what I mean? Or, this thing over here. And they're showing all these shiny objects and they don't realize that, like, dude, you have to buy it right on the front end. That's why they say, like, you make your money when you buy a property, not when you sell it, and it's so true.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, anybody, I hope you guys listen to what he just said. If you don't know it already, you make your money on the buy. You have to buy it right. Right price, the right time, you name it. That's when you're going to make your money in real estate, not when you sell it. So, for context, how many properties do you currently own?
Only five. I got five. I think what we talked about earlier was, the whole idea is to sell all of them to then buy a multifamily, do my
Mhm.
first 1031 exchange, and go from there because they're all spread out everywhere now,
Yeah.
So now it's to the point where it's the operations, the upkeep is just too much, putting everything into like a 10 unit 20 unit to do something like that that's more not only more manageable but you can scale a lot better a lot easier that way and actually getting into the syndication stuff was actually when I started doing things with active duty passive income. I started getting into the syndication side, trying to build teams to do that. And actually, Cedric, this is a pretty funny story, but we had a deal here in Atlanta right outside. I mean, dude, right down Vine City, which Vine City is kind of the hood, right, of Atlanta. But dude, it's like 5 minutes from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, right there, man, and it's a full value add, 75 units. And the guy was willing to do seller financing, the whole nine. He was going to give it to us about 100K per unit, which
Okay.
is really good over here. And so we sent the offer. We were going back and forth. He didn't want to do a what was it, 10-year no prepayment penalty, or he wanted to do a prepayment, like a huge prepayment penalty of like 50%, something like that, something crazy, in
Okay.
10 years. He was trying to retire and he was trying to make good money, like 30K a month, off that property from us, which is cool. But we just kept on going back and forth. And a lady actually reached out to me from what's his name? God, what's his name? The guy Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone's production team hit me up because Grant Cardone was doing kind of a Shark Tank, but for real estate. That's what he was doing. And so like people, realtors, brokers, investors would like, hey, this is my deal. I'm gonna pitch it to you, and whether or not he wants to invest in it or not. That was like the whole thing. I don't
Okay.
know if they ever aired it or what, but anyways, I was like, they reached out to me because I was in capital raising mode, at that time, and I was like, holy shit! I was like, Grant Cardone. How did the planets, the stars align, with this? I was like, well, I'm gonna run with it. So I talked to the producing team. I'm like, hey, I do have a deal. I do have these things. I was like, I don't want to tell you too much detail, but I do have something that I know Grant for sure is gonna want to, pull the trigger on. And they were like, I mean, they were moving, man. Like, hey, get all this paperwork, get their seller to sign this so we can, shoot on site, cameras on site on the property and everything. And so when I went back to the seller and I'm like, hey man, like this is what's going on, this is the situation, bro, he was not interested at all. He was kind of old school. He's like, bro, are you gonna do a deal or not? Like
Right.
we've been going back and forth. Like you trying to do a deal or not? Like you're playing games. I'm like, no, dude, this is how I'm gonna get money to the table. He's like, well, I already got another guy that he's got the money. He's got money
Ah,
on the table, and he's like, and he's actually giving it to me for 115 a door, so you're 100K a door. And I was like, damn. And we end up raising money later. I was like, well, hold on. I was like, fuck Cardone. We end up raising money too. Actually, the money that we needed, the down payment, the renovation. So we ended up raising like $3 million in 48 hours after that conversation because he never accepted our offer. He just accepted the other people's offer and we lost the deal. It's man, it was we were butthurt for that for a little bit,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that I can honestly say when it comes to real estate, whether it be from a broker or direct to seller, they just want the surety of close. That's it.
Yo,
And you almost had it. It was just that piece where the Cardone piece came in. Outside
yeah,
of that, you probably would have had it locked down,
yeah.
but it was just that one piece.
Probably should have just got it locked up. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? They just got it locked up and then talk about it later, But
yeah, yeah.
I didn't think that he was going to be so turned out that he was going to be Grant Cardone. Cool, man. Yeah, tell him to come on. You know what I mean? And but it was
Oh, if he
yeah,
was
it
old
was
school,
old.
he's like probably like, who the heck is Grant Cardone?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
screw that, dude. We're doing a deal or not. Like, you know, cash is king. Let's talk. You know,
yeah. That's
but
exactly what it was too, man. So
yeah,
I learned my lesson on that one too.
yeah. So now with your portfolio, let's talk about the financing piece. How have you been able to finance your portfolio so far?
Oh, the ADPI method, man, for sure. It was only two deals where I've actually done it with like actual cash, and then the other three have been with VA loans. Buying it at acquiring it at very low cost, and then going there and kind of like buy, live, and rehab, and then start it over to the next one, start it over to the next one, and that's how I do. That's the ADPI way, right? Using your VA home loan, living in it, renovating it, or house hacking, whatever the case may be. PCS, go to the next one, so on and so forth. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why I try to tell veterans all the time, man. It's like everybody tells me right now the interest rates are so high and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, interest rates are so high. I was like, but dude, here's the thing, man. Like, this is my advice to anybody that are like, you're on the fence of buying, you don't know when to the right time to buy or anything like that, because everybody, in my opinion, always tries to find the perfect time to buy. And yes, are there certain times better to buy than others? There are, but it comes down to you, where you're at in your life, what you're needing to get. Because as soon as you buy real estate, that's when the time actually starts, right? For it to start appreciating, for it to actually do what it do. But if you're just sitting there waiting for the perfect time, dude, it's not gonna come, because all the people in 2020, 2021 that were like, it's stupid to buy a house right now. I'm not overpaying for a house and being underwater and all this stuff. I mean, everybody was saying how stupid that it was at that time to buy. And I didn't know how to argue with them, actually. But what I did know, I was like, dude, if the Wall Street guys are out here and hedge funds are out here and iBuyers are out here gobbling all these properties up, there's a reason. And they're one of the smartest financial people in the world. So if they're down it, there's a reason. And I didn't know exactly what it was until interest rates shot back up. What are people saying now? Man, it's stupid to buy a house right now, man. Da da da. And it's like, all right, man. Well, guess what? When the interest rates get a little bit lower, these buyers are going to come back and gobble it up again. So you're either going to overpay it now and then
Right.
ride that appreciation wave, which all those people right now have 100K worth of equity right now, almost guaranteed.
Oh
You
yeah.
know that bought in that time. So who's really stupid then? One, and then two. Right now, if you buy, houses aren't selling, right? It's becoming more of a buyer's market now in Atlanta. And so now you have more negotiation room. Now you can actually ask for closing costs. And so if you're a VA buyer, 0% down, and you can get like 5 to 9K in closing costs, you just acquired a house for nothing, $2,000. You know what I mean? You acquired a property for $2,000, and now you start looking at your cash on cash return, those numbers are going to be stupid, you know? And then on top of equity, that equity is gonna build, you know what I mean? So on top of that, so you just have to look at it as like, hey, where am I at in my life, and where do I want to be, and what your strategy is, So, and if the guys like Cedric and I, where we're just trying to build a portfolio, then it's like, okay, well, just acquiring it when you can, great, and going from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, your portfolio, do you self-manage or do you have a third-party property manager?
I self-manage. So, Cedric, you're gonna think this is funny. So I use an app called Turbo Tenant.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Turbo Tenant?
No, I'm not.
Man, Turbo Tenant is awesome. So anybody that's listening that's doing single family residential, dude, Turbo Tenant is like a landlord property management software. And so they do literally everything, and it's super affordable. It's like $25 a month. And you do everything from A to Z, from putting your house on the market. You can list it on Turbo Tenant, and Turbo Tenant puts it all to his little providers, right? So like Realtor.com, all these different ones. I think they do everything but Zillow. That's the only problem. They do everything but Zillow, but they still market it for you. And then from there, you get leads. So you get all the leads through Turbo Tenant. Then you qualify the leads. Then once you see a lead that's qualified, then you can send them the application. You do the application through Turbo Tenant, right? Turbo Tenant does the background check, the credit score, the criminal, everything, right? And then from there, you're like, okay, cool. You can go or no go this person. You go, okay, cool. You go to the next step of things, right? Hey, I'm going to help you put together the lease. You're in Georgia. You're going to use a Georgia lease agreement. And like Turbo Tenant helps you with that. Hey, how much? And then they'll have like kind of fill in the blanks. What do you want for rent? Deposit, fees, all these things. You kind of fill out all these forms, and then they just punch out an actual lease agreement and digital signature. You send it over to them, digitally sign it. They come back, digitally sign it, all through the app, man. And then you even set it up on the app where you collect rent on the app. So you collect rent. The tenants actually build their credit by using Turbo Tenant. Whatever late fees you already put on your lease, Turbo Tenant automatically puts it on there. The whole nine, man. It's crazy. Any maintenance requests, the tenant sends it through Turbo Tenant. Then you send the maintenance requests over to your contractor. Contractor does it, sends pictures on Turbo Tenant. Boom. And then my whole operation is Turbo Tenant. The cool thing is because I teach my kids everything that I do. My son, 11 years old now, he manages my properties in Turbo Tenant. And because you got to think about it, it's all an app, right? So the tenants, they don't know that they're talking to an 11-year-old. All they know is that they're submitting a request, or they're sending messages through the app, and it's my son over there coordinating with the maintenance guy to come over here and all this other stuff, and paying the maintenance guy. My 11-year-old son does it.
Nice.
So he manages from A to Z, and I happily pay him for it. That's
Nice.
his job. So if an 11-year-old can do it, and and it's an effective and it's efficient, and we haven't had no problems, then I think any entrepreneur can do it, man. Super simple. I think the only thing is, I think it's like it kind of maxes out at 20 units. I think I think after that you can start using different software, and you can't use Airbnb. So like one of my properties is an Airbnb, so we don't have it on there, so it's awesome, man. I'm a big fan of Turbo Tenant, and they even actually have an account of Turbo Tenant. They have like an accounting software too, where you can print out rent rolls, your T. I mean, It shows you like your portfolio. I mean, your NOI, dude. It gives you all those reports that you need for like the bank, the whole nine, man. And so you're talking about all in $50 a month to utilize Turbo Tenant to its full extent.
Okay. So, speaking of Airbnb, what prompted you to be able to move into that lane where, sounds like you were doing the regular rentals and everything like that. And so now you're into that Airbnb type of mode. So what got you there?
So one of my contractors that I've done a lot of deals with, he's an investor slash general contractor. I actually wholesaled this house to him. I got it under contract for 50K. So I wholesaled it to him, assigned it to him for 60K, so a 10K fee. We did that deal. 2 years later, he was still trying to rehab it, and he just didn't have the funds with it. And so he called me in one day. He's like, "Dude, you got 20 grand to give me." Like, man, I don't know what you need, you know? And so we started talking, and I was like, "Look, I'll give you my MX that's plugged into my Home Depot Pro account." You know, I was like, my mind, I was like, "I'll get points." I was like, "You can do the materials." And I was like, you know what? I was like, so that way when you sell the house, I know you're good for it, because I know, dude, he buys like 10 houses a year from me, you know, at the time. So I just know that he was just low on cash at that time. And so I was like, dude, I'm willing to do that, you know? And so we agreed. So he just started racking up my MX account with the Home Depot. And so anyways, I started looking at that deal a little bit more. I was like, wow. I was like, dude, I sold it to this dude, you know, for 60K. And now he's looking to sell it for like 250K or something like that. I was like, wow, there are margins. And I started looking, I was like, wow, Forest Park, you know, it's got really good, like 20% appreciation rate year over year for the past 5 years. Started looking at all the developments that's happening on the south side and stuff like that. And I was like, all right. I was like, this is kind of a sweet deal. And so I started looking, and I was like, well, maybe I'll buy the house from him. Maybe we would turn it into an Airbnb. And I started looking at the numbers of Airbnb, and the numbers look good. It was like $200 a night, stuff like that. So I was like, well, how about this? What about I buy the house from you? I buy it back from you, you know? That way I can ensure I get my 20K back, pay off my credit card, you know? And then I was like, but you have to give it to me for 235 and like $8,000 in closing costs. So he agreed to all the terms. So essentially I acquired a fully renovated house that with a high appreciating location. Look,
Mhm.
the numbers look good on Airbnb, and I acquired it for like $1,500, like with the VA loan, everything like that. So for like 9 months, I went in there and lived in it and only rented out like part time, you know,
Yeah.
Airbnb part time, and then after we crossed that 1 year mark, that's when we kind of went balls to the wall, full time Airbnb, the whole nine. So it was okay. Doing the first year really sucked, but now we're like a super host. Now we're like the best guest, you know, property in the area. I mean, if you look at it, like no other property is like our property there, you know. So that's why we get like, you know, the attraction that we do. And that's all from my wife. I mean, my wife is the front line on there, dealing with the guests and the reviews and stuff like that. I'm kind of like the maintenance guy on the background, creating the maintenance guy to go there, the lawn care, you know what I mean? But my
Yeah.
wife, she handles the front side of that. So that's her little house and her little project. So she loves it, she enjoys it, and it's been pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if my listeners picked up what you said, but again, he sold this guy this house. The guy, fell a little short on cash, then put it up on the market. And Edgar knew how much the house was actually worth. Why? Because he knew the market. So the thing that I want everybody to take away from that conversation there is, like, anytime that you're into investing, know your market. We spoke about it earlier on knowing the market. It will save you big time, and it can actually make you money again on the buy. Because if you have someone who, an investor who may be an out of town investor, they may not know the true value of that area in which you're looking to buy. They may be underselling that for particular property. But if you know your market, you might be able to get some slamming deals at the right time, at the right price.
And you can move fast too.
Yeah.
So like me, because the south side of Atlanta, like Riverdale, Forest Park, Jonesboro, you know, College Park, East Point, like those areas, I'm so zoned in those areas that I know just off of purchase price if it's a deal or not. You know what I mean? I can tell just based off of what it looks like, what pocket it in, because I'm so zoned in to that area that I can tell you, from the back of the, just by looking at a property on Zillow, if that's worth pursuing, if that's worth calculating the numbers on, whatever. Yeah, I mean, knowing your market and knowing your buy box, I would say that's what helps you move fast as an investor, because when the right deal does come, it's not just you, right? There's other investors there that are like, they have their own buy boxes, they have their own stuff too. So it is very important not only to know your market, how to run the numbers, and to move quickly and effectively.
100%. So now let's move over to your entrepreneurial side real quick. So what prompted you all to start EarTuff?
So Jonathan Cantrell, we've been best friends since 8th grade, and we've always talked about doing business together. And I've always had bad experiences with business partners in the past. And so that's kind of like another reason why I kind of went to real estate. I was very solo by myself, didn't have to depend on anybody or anything like that. But, Cantrell and I, we've been, best friends for a long time. We respected each other. We just know each other. We know each other since we're kids, pretty much, right? And so, he's been in the hearing industry for 10 plus years, selling hearing aids, and then being more on the clinical side. And a couple opportunities came to his lap where some employees from a manufacturing facility was like, "Hey, can you make some ear molds for us for hearing protection? Because it's really loud in here. I hate wearing the kind of the cushy earplugs and stuff. So they get yelled at and stuff like that for not having their stuff on the line. And so at the time, Control was like, "Look," I was like, "Dude, I don't make any money off their ear molds, and it's kind of dangerous injecting like kind of the clay into somebody's ear, making the mold." Stuff like that. But then he went to a conference where they were doing a 3D scan of ears. So it was taking 5 minutes, super easy, in and out. And then the way that you can do that and the way that we can market it, there's really good margins. And so he was like, "Hey man, like I've had a couple manufacturers want to reach out to me, do about 100, 200, 300 employees, and we can sell it at this much." He goes, "Dude, there's good money in this." And I was like, man, this is exactly right when I was about to jump into commercial real estate and do the whole nine. I was like, man, I don't know. You're telling me to stop my whole life to come do this. And so it wasn't until Ford, actually, like Ford Motor Company, like reached out to Kensho and was like, "Hey, we would be interested in this. Just let us know when you're ready," type of thing. And so then he called me back. He's like, "Bro, you need to do it. I don't care what you say. Like, we just do it." I was like, "All right." I was like, the problem is like when I go in, I go all in on something, I don't half-ass nothing. That was when I was like, "All right, man." I was like, "Let's do it." And so we jumped all in. I didn't know nothing about hearing. I didn't know anything about manufacturing. Completely different worlds to me, but we got very involved into the Georgia Association of Manufacturers, the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance. We got really involved really quick. And next thing you know, we found a need in the manufacturing space that every big manufacturer is needing at a big time, because these hearing protections, they are required by the federal government for manufacturers to have them if your facility is over like 85, 90 decibels, right? So it's a requirement, right? So it's almost recession proof, right? Because even if the market tanks, they still got to do hearing tests every year. They always got to have hearing protection on, they always have to have these things. And so that's the thing that I love the most. I was like, man, it's pretty recession proof, and everybody pays for safety. It's just one of those things, like everybody pays for safety, man. So it was a no-brainer. We jumped in, and recently we just locked up a deal with Milo's tea company. They're like the biggest tea company in the country, and then Mitsubishi Power. So we got really big traction right now with the business, and then now it's going to go up from here. So now I'm a big ear guy now, doing the stuff. But I'm kind of used to that, right? So hoverboards was a completely business I had zero idea about. Vodka was a completely different industry I had no idea about. And then, of course, now where I'm in, it's completely different than both of those. So I guess I'm kind of used to just jumping in and just learning fast, adapting fast. kind of what we learned in the military, learn how to learn and adapt, and then be an expert as quick as possible.
Absolutely. So do you guys have a team?
What now?
Do you have a team?
Oh, yeah. We have a team. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's about 7 of us.
Okay. All right. Now, how did you guys come together as a team?
Well, the cool thing is that with Cantrell's hearing aid business on the side, a lot of those team members and staff, they were able to kind of bleed over here with us, So that's the beauty about our business, is that everything's 1099. So we don't have any employees. It's
Yep.
all 1099 at work. So we have a contract with Mitsubishi next week for a week. All right, girls, like, we're gonna pay you, $1,000 for the week or whatever, to come service this contract. And that's it. The manufacturers, they usually pay you 50% up now, 50% later. So usually that first 50%, we already pay all of our expenses, and then a lot more left over than everything else on the second check's pure profit. So dude, it's been good. It's been great.
Yeah. And how has this been funded?
You self-funded.
Okay.
Self-funded. Yeah, self-funded. It wasn't until recently where we're like, all right, like, we need to buy a bunch of equipment, and we were scrambling around with friends and family to, raise, some money to put down, because we've done put over 100,000 in the business. So we've had a lot of people come to us about, hey, here's 500K. Well, what do you need? I just want 10%, and we're like, we've been pushing those people away, especially with my network. I mean, everybody kind of knows I'm always into something, so it's so funny. It's like when you have a network and everybody's kind of like in business and stuff like that, you'd be surprised, man, especially with you in the syndication side. Once you start telling people you're a real estate syndicator and you're doing real estate and you're doing your thing, like, people start coming to you wanting to give you money, like, hey man, like, let me know when you have a deal, I'm gonna do it. It's same thing on the private equity side, man. Same thing. Like, people want to cut, and then once you become like that person in your network, that you're kind of that guy, to have the real estate deal like you, Cedric, or me to have like a business that is still ripe, people want to come in early.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely coming in early. So now, what's the long-term vision for EarTuff?
So we want to sell it. We have a couple in buyers. I don't want to say it on the podcast.
Keep that under wraps.
Yeah. So we have an exfil, and we have a number in mind. But we're thinking after 5 years, I think we'll start looking at what that looks like and start reaching out to anybody that would be interested. Yeah, it's definitely a timeline sequence of events, just like real estate's the same way, right? Like, you buy it, you renovate it, you have kind of a plan of when you want to get out of it, whether it's refi, whether it's sell it. It's the same. It's kind of the same process. They really do run parallel, from, because syndications, I mean, real estate, it's a business. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I'll just say this, dude, you are by far the luckiest person that I've run into in my entire life. Hoverboards, and here with EarTuff, I mean, when I tell you you're in the right rooms, the right places at the right times, it's making me take a look at myself and like, look, I gotta get in different rooms, because these things aren't happening to me the way they're happening to you. So that's definitely pushing me to get in the right rooms.
Oh yeah, actually, man, I'll be honest. I didn't get into the right rooms until recently. Like, truly, it was about a year and a half ago where I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm sick and tired of going to the same real estate meetups and everybody's struggling. They're struggling. Everybody, it's like, it's hard to explain. Like, I think the best one to explain is, like, you mentioned the RIA, kind of like the RIA meetups.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the BNIs. I mean, I've been to a lot of different networks. Dude, I've been in business for 10 plus years. I've been to them all. And I was like, I need to really find a group that is above my level, two levels up, right? In the military, they talk about 2 levels up, right? So that's when I got involved with the Georgia Association of Manufacturers, and I started applying for leadership roles. And so now we're on the operational council there. Dude, when I walked in there, I was out of my depth for sure. I knew I was in the right room, but I was going to sit there and shut up, right? I was going to sit there and just shut up and just learn. And so that's when I started realizing, I was like, oh, okay, well, I can actually help you guys in this area, right? And so that way I started showcasing a little bit of value. I wasn't even, trying to sell EarTuff. I wasn't even trying to sell myself. I was like, look, what about you guys do it this way? Or, I can connect you with this person that can make a big move and provide big resources in this way. And that's how I was able to kind of showcase a little bit of value in these little groups. And I joined 3 different groups that had big impacts within them. That's when I joined the ATL Vets. I sit on the board of ATL Vets, and all those people, board members, they have their own businesses, they have their own stuff. And so when you help try to provide value for them, they're like, all right, cool. Well, I'm gonna help you out, and I actually know this person. So a funny thing. So my mom is actually a business consultant now for University of Georgia, right? So she helps small businesses and everything. It's kind of a program that UGA has. So we just hosted a big, huge event in September, and I tried to get Kirby Smart, the UGA football coach, to come speak. And I asked my mom, I was like, hey, you work there, see if you can do it. And she was just like, no, she talked to people would just say no to her real quick. And then I looked at my network with ATL Vets, and just so happens, one of the board members, she played softball at North Georgia, and her best friend that she played on the softball team, her husband sits on like the athletic director board or whatever at UGA that is cool with Kirby Smart. So it was just like, oh, okay, the BNI, the little typical meetup like networking group is like where my mom and her clients are at with like the business consulting, like that little group. But this is how you get behind the back door, to that. And so you hear all the time, you read it all the time in books, like, you have to be in rooms, that are smarter than you, bigger than you, wealthier than you, everything better than you. And when I actually started doing it, that's when my life changed for sure. That's when everything changed. And you hear it all the time, man. You hear it all the time. Like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, But it wasn't until like I actually implemented it, and I didn't just do it in one room. I did it like in 3 different rooms where things changed big time. Because now you're talking like a business attorney that's in because I'm in the business executives for national security here in Atlanta. This is the other group, the 3rd group, and they're a business attorney. He goes shoots clay with the Atlanta Gaslight that would be interested in our hearing protection. So it's like, how would have I gotten that contact? You wouldn't. You know what I mean? You wouldn't have. You know what I mean? And so it's insane. It's insane. And I always think now, I'm like, imagine if I was in this group and I was like, hey, I'm a syndicator and I got this deal and any of y'all would be interested. Dude, it would be easy. It would be too easy. People would throw their money at you. And the thing is that I don't want to do that because I'm kind of known as the EarTuff guy in these circles. So it's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to do the transition like that, but I think like if the right deal comes, like I said, this deal that we talked about before we jumped on here, I think like the people on the network would jump on something like that.
Yeah. Great, man. So I know that you do the ATL Vets and you're in the National Guard. Is there any other way that you give back to the military community?
No, at this point in time, no. A lot of times when I get back to the veteran community, it was when I was doing the realtor stuff, being a veteran agent and stuff. That was when I gave a lot of my time to talk about, hey man, this is the roadmap that you should be on. This first house is going to do this. And this is how you start planning the rest of your portfolio out. That's what I used to do. It just take hours. for each client. But I think it paid dividends for them later, I think. And but like right now, I think with juggling so many things, the best that I can do right now is you know, do the 2-3 hours of real estate education to veterans through ATL Vets. And then of course, we're doing the transition pathways for transitioning veterans from military to civilian world. And we're actually building a pathway now for manufacturing. So I was able to kind of bridge that gap between the manufacturing and ATL Vets. So that way, when guys get out of the military and they're like, look, I don't know where to go. So, all right, well, look, here's this pathway. You get your Lean Six Sigma certification, get your PMP certification, go through this vet ops program. And by the time you graduate from the program, you're going to be in a kind of like a senior level manager, in a manufacturing facility, and that way it's not only a good transition because you got to think about it, man. Like a lot of those guys that get out that are like E7s and above, or like they're O3 and above, like they kind of have this pride to them. I know I do, I'll be honest with you. I got a pride to it, right? Because okay, well, you're a big rank now, right? So when you get out of the civilian world, you don't want to be a guy that's like taking out the trash. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So there's a pride to it, right? And so how we're helping fix that gap, right, is that is like, okay, well, look, if you're a first sergeant or E7 above and you manage this many people, or if you're a major and above and you manage this many people, then you kind of fall within the parameters of this type of job description, right? Now you have the experience from the military. Now we need to get you the skill sets on the civilian side to be able to help sculpt you to be a civilian leader in the manufacturing space. And that's how we're creating the pathway for that.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So as we start to wrap up this this interview, listen, what strategies would you recommend to a beginner? It could be real estate, it can be military, or life in general. What strategies would you recommend to a beginner that has led to some of your success that you have?
I would say this is like, I would pick what you want to do. So if you have, I don't know, if you have an idol of some sort, I'm just going to give like an example. If you want to be a CEO of a company, right? Like I think that you need to start, everything that you do now is helping you train and educate yourself to be the CEO, right? So even though if you're working at a restaurant, I'm just going to use that as an example. Even if you're working at a restaurant, use that time as a restaurant, not to be a worker, but to develop your skills as a CEO. So what does that mean? Customer service. If you're not in a management position, get in a management position so you can start learning how to lead others, right? Provide the purpose, motivation, the direction that they need to grab your organization to push them to success, right? And I think that a lot of people are so tied up to where they're at now and not using what they have now to develop who they want to be later, if that makes sense. And so we're like, hey, I just don't want to do the restaurant business no more. Okay, cool. Now go ahead and get, if you're weak at sales, go get a sales job, learn sales. If you want to go into real estate, I mean, the best way I did it was I went into an investment brokerage and I learned real estate that way. You don't have to make a career out of it. You don't have to make, be a lifer by any means, but you go into different organizations that specialize in the things that you want to specialize in and learn and have hands-on work, hands-on learning with it. Some OJT on the job training, So I would say for anybody out there that's looking to be an entrepreneur, that's looking to do any of these other things, I think that's my best advice forward is to do some on-the-job training at a job that you're currently at, or some skills that would better benefit you as a CEO or entrepreneur that you want to be.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Edgar, it has been a blast having you as our guest today. As we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
Yeah, awesome. Y'all can just look me up on LinkedIn. Edgar Gonzalez on LinkedIn. Or if you wanted to reach out, you just go to eartuff.com. I got a Calendly link directly on the site, and we can get in touch there.
Super. Edgar, again, I want to thank you for your time today and all the wisdom you have provided to my listeners. It's greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning in to another Service to Syndication Real Estate podcast, where we want to provide value to you and your investing business. Please tune in to our next episode, where we will interview another fantastic investing professional. See you next time.
See you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.